All right, let's get down to business today. We're going to be talking about turning red. Now, this whole turning red debacle that happened that I missed because I'm like doing schoolwork and whatnot, I'm not gonna I've just got so many videos that I want to do, like the Merlin video, like I want to do a video about Sleepy Hollow, the series, and I wanted to do a video about Grimm. Please let me know in the comments what you want next, because I'm kind of just sitting here not doing anything else YouTube-wise, because I'm kind of stuck on what I should do next. But turning red is something that people have been talking about for a while. And it's about May basically coming of age, and they're using her turning into a red panda as like a little allusion to that. And they kind of talk about it. They kind of talk about pads and whatnot once. And I've seen a lot of white male adults being upset at this movie because they can't relate to the movie. And I'm going to talk about who relates to what and who always gets the movie, who always, no matter if it's literally inanimate objects that they're using inanimate objects in favor of patriarchy. Let girls have something in this world. You disgusting heathens. Anyway, turning red, people considered it an allegory to period, but it begins with embarrassment. I realized that it's mostly about being embarrassed. When I heard turning red, before I even watched the movie, I assumed that she was embarrassed about something, because I feel like turning red means, oh my goodness, I'm shocked, I'm embarrassed. When she's embarrassed, she turns into the panda. That most often happens. So I saw that. I peeped that. Communication was lacking. The first issue that started the red panda began because May didn't communicate that the pictures were what she drew. And she has to, this whole story is basically the perspective of a girl who's Asian. And she comes from an Asian family who has high expectations of her. And even though I am not Asian, I could still relate to this girl's story. But I'll explain a little more about ethnicity and race and whatnot later down in the video. Also, May was never listened to when she did talk. Her mom kind of just went over because she's like, well, I have expected you to do everything and you have been doing that. So let me just, even at the end, near the end, she blames her friends for what happened instead of giving her responsibility for the situation. And responsibility does not mean punishment. Responsibility means you know that your child isn't the best person in the world. You don't have to say they're the worst, but I don't think we should be living in extremes. If you're living in extremes, especially if you have children, I feel like you're sick, because you should not have to say either they're the best person in the world or the worst person in the world. Everyone is in the middle somewhere. Here are my critiques of Turning Red. Spoiler, this is a spoiler thing. Critiques I have of this movie. May could have had a black friend. There were no repercussions for May using the panda, as many fair, quote unquote, fair reviews of Turning Red love to say about this movie. She didn't have enough consequences, but what did they want from this movie? What did they want other than for her to be a panda forever and have to live out in the woods? I feel like the repercussion is the fact that she gets to, we don't know what the part 2 of this movie is. We don't know about the shorts. I didn't watch the shorts, if there are any shorts, but you don't know. Maybe the stuff will happen in another movie. Why do you need her to suffer so greatly? I just did a review of Encanto, and I noticed that there were no repercussions for what happened. But the reason why I feel like there should have been more repercussions is because we literally start back from where we began. May did not start out with the red panda. So it's not like we wasted our time watching this movie. With Encanto, I felt like it was a waste of a movie to just start from everybody having powers and Maribel not having nothing, and then end the exact same way, except Bruno's here now. Wow. We didn't even get Bruno being upset at the fact that everyone was talking smack about him and he was there. He's kind of very passive, and that's something I didn't talk about in my Encanto video because it was a really quick bit, but I feel like, sidebar, Bruno was too passive, and even he could have been the villain. That could have been his Joker origin story. but y'all are playing it safe for some reason. I feel like there wasn't enough effort put into Encanto. Turning Red seemed to have a lot more effort put into the story. And you can't just put ethnic people in a story and be like, well, that's it. That's all we're going to do. Because that's what y'all do. And then people have problems with it and issues with it. And then it turned into a whole new thing. That's what happened with Black Panther. It wasn't bad at all under any circumstance, but it was subpar to the point where people noticed and scrutinized it far greater than a white situation. But I digress. But Turning Red is just another example of Disney not knowing how to make ethnic people exist without turning into animals. And I don't care how long she was a human for, because like a lot of people are saying, oh, she's a human more often than an animal. Can we have one where we're not animals at all? Ever, ever, ever. Or obscured face. I'll explain what I mean by that later. I think it's interesting that these gamer dudes and e-boys who review these movies say that women and girl characters who don't suffer enough on screen for them, the repercussions they have for existing, aren't properly written protagonists. But I'm just like, are you really that critical of male-led shows or movies? You're a lie if you say yes. What I get from the movie was that the red panda was never something that you couldn't control. Women stereotypes that are still prevalent today. Oh, I can't control my power. Oh my goodness, I've got so much power. But men can control it somehow. I just don't understand that. I never understood that. And that whole making women uncontrollable, can't do anything with any form of power, just gonna die, just gonna convulse and can't do anything. I'm just so powerful. I'm a woman. I'm so feeble. I think that's one big reason why some people don't like young Midoriya from My Hero Academia, because he curbs that stereotype. A lot of things that are associated with Midoriya or Deku are feminine traits that a lot of writers give to women. I say writers because it's mostly in things that don't exist and that aren't real. It's not a reality that they get from anywhere. It's just literally fiction. It's literally something someone wrote up and people are using it as an example of real life. But Midoriya is very emotional. He can't control his powers for the most part. He tries and he has obstacles. He is literally what everyone says women are, but he is a boy. He's got those little aspects that are usually considered feminine or only for women to suffer with. And that's one reason why I know these incels and e-boys hate on My Hero Academia. It's not about too many characters. It's not about the names flashing on the screen. It's literally because Midoriya has characteristics that are usually associated with girls and women. And you can't handle that because it shatters your freaking illusion that you have of masculinity. How about you break those roles for me real quick? I'm just sick of this whole stereotype of women in shows or movies being unable to control themselves when given vast amounts of power, like Daenerys Stormborn. And for the most part, Turning Red shows that without making it exactly true, it's kind of like, it kind of curbs you a little bit. May could control the panda really well. Her grandmother said it could happen and can't specifically happen. If you listen to what the grandmother says to May. She's like, has that ever happened before? And she's like, it can't happen. So I interpreted that as they've never seen it before. They never seen them go crazy. It's kind of like not taking responsibility for your actions. And that's another thing that guys love to talk about women doing when women have been taking responsibility for everything in the world, even to the biblical standpoint. Eve having to take responsibility for Adam eating the apple when she did not open his mouth and chomp it down. He knew he shouldn't have ate the apple. But you love to blame women. Patriarchy loves to blame women for everything. Oh, you shouldn't have had that baby. You shouldn't have married that dude. You shouldn't have XYZ. But men never get this accountability thing. Y'all are complacent. And you've never been told that you should take accountability. And that's my stance on that. There's no proof of these women being out of control when they have the panda. When her mom turns into that big thing, she is her own person. It's not the red panda doing that to her. It's just her being angry. An example of this trope being exploited is Demon Slayer. Link is in the description of my review of that so far. Like, there's only been season 1 and season 2. There's tons of arcs apparently. I don't read the manga, but I did watch the movie and I like the movie. But back to Turning Red. May's bully is the only blackish, I say blackish character because they like light-skinned him to crap, but everyone, if you look at him compared to everyone else, you know he's black-ish. He's the only blackish character with any lines. I don't care, like The Simpsons is doing this thing where they're just putting black people in the background, and yeah, that's cool, that's great, but let's pretend we're Bridgerton and have all these Asian people and black people in the back and not give them any lines. Like, representation also means they have lines. We're almost there, but not quite. And I'm not going to accept mediocrity. And mediocrity is just having a few black faces, ethnic faces in the background. Tyler has a spaz in the movie, then plays victim, which reminded me of when I confronted my bully. And I think it was middle school. I told him off finally. He's been bullying me for years. And my teacher told me to shut up, which undid all my deeds as everyone laughed. So I was kind of like, okay, I can relate to that whole thing because he was bullying her the whole movie. And then when she finally did something, she was the one that was in the wrong. And her mom was like, oh my gosh. And his mom was like, oh my gosh. And his dad was like, oh my gosh. Like, it's so annoying. I hate that. Like, I hate bullies, honestly. May finally stood up for herself and she was reprimanded for it. I like that the panda was inside jewelry for the aunts and the grandmother. The final scene gave me chills. Like, I loved the band. I liked when the Asian song mixed with the boy band song. That's my favorite song of the whole movie. And I think it's interesting that everyone is just fine with the panda. It's not gonna make me think this is a bad movie, like these incels and these e-boys reviewing a movie that ain't got nothing to do with them. You've got other movies to talk about, but you decide that you feel like you're empowered enough to talk about this movie and scrutinize it in the face of patriarchy when we're trying to go the other way. But whatever. I liked that May's mom's panda was the biggest because she had the most pent up emotion and anger and all that. Like, I feel like they used emotion really well without necessarily saying that women were emotional. It was kind of like hiding it. So if you hide your emotions long enough, you're going to explode. And that's why women are seen as, oh, you're emotional, when men are the most emotional creatures on the face of this planet. Like I said, you have come complacent to the fact that you don't get reprimanded enough, not nearly enough. Like, when men complain about stuff, it's like Cry Me a River, honestly. Let's talk about that dude who couldn't relate to the characters or whatever. Literally, let's talk about this real quick before I give you my overall arching opinion about Turning Red. When Disney Pixar dedicates their time to making movies that surround the stories of very much exclusively white people and catering to boy children with stereotypical boy things that society, not me, think are boy things, to ignore what is to forsake that could be is intellectually dishonest of you. Society thinks boy things like Cars, Bug's Life. I'm sure the main character being male has nothing to do with the demographic they were catering to. Toy Story, don't talk about Jessie or Lil Bo Peep because she was an afterthought. Lil Bo Peep was like something for Molly or whatever. Shut up about Molly. Or just because girls are in the show or movie does not mean they were written in mind at all under any circumstance. Written well or cared about at all. Women and girls are often used to push the main character, who is usually male, to do something. They'll either die, they'll either get captured in a tower, they'll either be just in the way of something. Bottom line, women usually don't have agency at all. They have no agency. They are just an object to push the story along in favor of the man or boy. You think robots centered around a male adjacent robot finding a female adjacent robot named Evie, like Adam and Eve, was a coincidence? And let me talk about Disney in particular. From what I could recall, when ethnic people at all are the central main character, they must spend some amount of time or most of their time as non-human. The examples I will count may be problematic as a whole because, and only because, they refuse to give us examples of not doing this enough So this isn't seen as a pattern. And I don't get me started, the princess problem, that they're just now reconciling with more capable, multi-dimensional female characters. Let's talk about the ethnic people who turn into animals, right? There are more than you think. No one talks about Emperor's New Groove. Cusco, this takes place in the Inca Empire, which is now modern day Peru, supposedly, according to Google. Cusco turned into a llama for most of his movie. His second movie wasn't even about him. Also, double points for making Yzma purple and not just a regular skin color. And before someone thinks they're smart and says, oh, you'd be upset if she was dark-skinned and a villain. First off, Eartha Kitt, her voice actress, was not even dark-skinned. Just make her a skin tone at all. Simple, easy. Secondly, make dark skin, light skin, all types of skins, plausible skin colored villains when you have humans. Just don't expect me to give you diversity claps for doing so, like once. Princess and the Frog, the most prime example of putting a dark-skinned black girl in a position to change into a frog when that wasn't even the story that she came from. That wasn't even the story. It's interesting because if Beauty and the Beast was in the lens of a black woman, I'm sure she would have turned into the Beast, because that's what you guys do. That's not how Beauty and the Beast worked. Okay, that's not how that worked. If you look up the Princess and the Frog story, that's not how that worked either. The best depiction of the Princess and the Frog was this fairy tales movie or show. I have it on disc. It's called Happily Ever After, Fairy Tales for Every Child. And it's centered around black people. And I think that's cool because we never get anything. We never get anything of substance. It's always like, oh, let's just throw this out and just throw it out, and then the black people will clap. I feel like Happily Ever After was such a good series, and it circled around black people. If you really want to see a successful black Princess and the Frog, look at that. Because it's not Princess and the Frog in Disney's eyes. It's the Frog Princess, and she never turned into a frog in her story, so shut up. That was unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and the movie is subpar and dumb. And why didn't she have any black friends? Why'd she have this white friend? Yes, that's an example of what happened. Okay, so the mom goes and she is working for these rich people, and somehow, even though you're working for rich people, you don't get no money for it. Barely any money to be, like, scraping by. Oprah's her mom. I don't care. I don't care. Do better. Like, that's mediocrity. She could have had black friends, and yeah, she had those black friends that she was talking to at the beginning, but how many times did they speak, and how many times did that rich white girl speak? How many? I'll wait for you to collect that. Tiana, the first and still, as of 2022, the only canonically black princess. If you say Nala is supposed to be black, even though she's a lion, I do not accept her. I do not claim her. She is an animal. She is an animal. I don't care if it takes place in Africa. Y'all don't say that dogs from All Dogs Go to Heaven are white people. You just say they're dogs. Why do we have to accept Nala? It's just so you can feel better about yourself. Brother Bear, Native Alaskan, I believe. Y'all forgot about Brother Bear, didn't you? Definitely not White Kenai. Is a bear for most of his movie and his sequel. He turned into a bear forever. He decides to stay a bear forever for some reason. American Dragon Jake Long. Now, I like this show and I like him. In fact, American Dragon Jake Long was my first crush as a child. One of my first crushes as a child on TV. You know, it's kind of like goes into the whole Turning Red thing where it's like you have crushes on people that aren't real or you don't know or whatever. But I liked his friend Trixie. But he still turned into a creature. He could not be Asian in his right. He could not be an Asian person in his right. He had to change it to something. And while I love American Dragon Story, and I think it's cool, I just feel like that's an addition. It's an addition. You can't tell me that it's not. It's a pattern of behavior. And I'm not even done yet. Black dude from Soul. He could not be black. He had to turn into a soul. And a cat. And a cat. And yeah, the other dude, there's a character that goes into his body and that character interacts with black people, but that's not what we're here for. We're not here for changing bodies. We're not here for turning into birds. We're not here for turning into any animal or creature anymore. Stop it. Why can't we just have our own story? Find another way to write black stories, or find writers who can do it, because you white Anglo-Saxons or whoever is doing this cannot do it. I don't know who's putting pressure on you. I don't know if it's the devil himself, but stop. I am telling you right now, the next movie that comes out with ethnic people and they turn into creatures, I'm not going to like it. Shut up about Encanto, because it just happened. Bonus round. Coco didn't turn into anything, but his skin was obscured with makeup for the majority of his movie. If you don't think that counts, you're just trying to fight for a cause that you don't care about. There are how many white people that get to exist as being white and be white? I don't care about Sleeping Beauty, who was asleep for most of her movie. She gets to be white. She gets to be her color, her skin color. Actually, another example of putting characters, the villains always have to have a different color and they're not white. I think that's really interesting. Maleficent is green, and that's cool. When people say people of color, they're talking about ethnic people, and sometimes specifically black people. Sometimes. So I think it's interesting that Disney loves to make the villains a different color that's not white, because it's like white people can't be the villains for some reason. The villain color is like purple or green, something to that effect, and they're not white, and that just goes to show where their minds are at. Which there are some white, specifically white villains that are clearly white because they're the aggressors, like in Pocahontas or in Peter Pan, which pirates are historically known for being the people that got sent away from England or whatever, some colonial powerhouse, to go ramshackle and destroy the lives of people everywhere and come back with doubloons. But you cannot help but to admit that they love to put different colors on villains. Even in The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie Boogie is coded black. And if you don't think so, literally go to Mars with Elon Musk. I'm not going to have a conversation with you where you plead ignorance every time people talk about things that are unspoken. And oh, it's just a color, you're looking too deep into it. You can miss me with it. You can literally miss me with that. Where does Luca take place? Why did these two boys that we follow turn into fish? When is this going to end? Yes, there are ethnic characters who don't turn into stuff, but this is a problem. Too many are here. Balance them. Do it faster. We don't need any more side story Frozen shorts. Start making more ethnic movies like Encanto. Literally. Except with a little more effort into the story and characterization, because like I said, if you want to know my opinion about Encanto, link is in the description of my quick bit of it. Tyler is the Blasian bully they decided to describe as aggressive in their ethnic movie. Another thing, in animation specifically, there is a lack of dark-skinned black girls. Literally, black boys outnumber them in movies, anime, TV shows. Like, when I talk about My Hero Academia, you're gonna hear what I have to say about, like, oh my goodness, I cannot wait to get that done. But I'm still not done with that anime. So once I'm done with that anime, you're gonna hear what I have to say. I think it's a great anime, but I will critique it accordingly. But literally, when dark-skinned black girls are there, notice how we seem to be the bullies or the lone ones that are used and abused, or just to, let me shield you, white main protagonist. I will stand before the danger and without receiving anything, and then hated by fans that are non-black people. Come on, get it together. But I'm mostly done with this. I'm pretty much done. I like Turning Red. I would say Turning Red gets an 8 out of 10. I literally gave Encanto a 7 out of 10, but it had to go down to 5 out of 10 because, like I said, if you put any, like, I didn't see no Let It Go thing. Maybe there was a sticker on somebody's lunchbox or something. I didn't notice anything that had anything to do with Let It Go in Turning Red, so I'm not going to dock it points for referencing Frozen or whatever. Watch my video about Encanto. It's really quick. It's a really quick bit. This is pretty fast too, because I usually make longer videos. But I said all I needed to say about this. If you don't relate to May, I don't care. Literally, there are other things that you can relate to. So many other things. Don't come at me with Disney makes princesses, so why are you complaining about women? Not all the princesses I can relate to exactly. So I think that's really interesting that people love to talk about how they can't relate to things until Black people say they can't relate to people. Then we're supposed to get over it, and color don't matter. Gender doesn't matter. We need more inclusion. We need more main characters who are Black that speak, that are not the villains or the freaking antagonists of it all. Literally. I really don't know why Tyler had to be the Blasian character. I feel like even though one of the friends, the white girl, was the one that May's mom didn't like, I feel like since we are using a sense of historical realism when it comes to May's family, the tradition, this would have been a perfect time to talk about colorism that occurs within the Asian community. There would have been some truth in showing a bit of anti-Blackness when it came to talking about an Asian story, and they could have been reprimanded for it. But there is tension between Asian people and Black people because white people want us to not work together. So there have been historical things that have happened that Black people were like, we're not going to settle, we're not going to take this anymore. And then there's a whole block issue where Black people and Asian people clash. And I feel like acknowledging that just acknowledges what history has happened. The white girl, there didn't need to be any white friends May had. There didn't need to be. I think it's interesting that y'all do your best. And she's the one that had the most lines. Indian girl, can't remember her name. She was goth and she was just monotone and barely spoke a word. Little Asian girl, don't remember her name. Her friend, May's friend, was comedic relief because, again, I said this in Encanto. When a girl is not stereotypically pretty in the eyes of society, usually when she is bigger, when she has any difference between her and the main protagonist, she is destined to be comedic relief, no matter what. Any difference will make her the comedic relief, and she was the comedic relief. And I think it's cool that she had two Asian friends because Indian is Asian. And that's why I don't like when people say Native Americans are Indians. And I'm taking this Native American class and there's a lot of Indian speak when that's incorrect. I just feel like, why are we still perpetuating that? It's so annoying. Hate that so much. But turning red. Old girl, the white friend, had the most lines. Out of the friends, not May, I'm talking about the three friends. That white girl had the most lines out of the three friends, who are all ethnic except her. Literally, if the white girl doesn't have the most lines, which I highly doubt, it really seems like it. It seems like they say her name more. It seems like she's just referenced more, even though it's not even her story. But like I said, this is between the three friends, not May. If she were Black and it would have still been the exact same, the mom said she didn't like the white girl. It could have played into the fact that Black people and Asian people have clashed historically in spaces where white people were trying to divide the people who they were trying to conquer. This takes place in Toronto, I think, Canada, so I don't know anything about colonialism there. I just know that a lot of people who are right-winged from a certain world war fled to go to Canada. And I know that there's a lot of issues and racial situation that you can't really talk about a lot in a kids movie. So I didn't really mind that it wasn't there. But like the only thing I could say about Turning Red is there didn't need to be a white friend. She could have been Black and it could have been fine and I wouldn't have been upset. But that's all I have to say. Like I said, 8 out of 10. It was all right. It was a good movie. I'd watch it again. I loved the music. And I feel like maybe the aunts could have had a little more characterization. They kind of just washed over their personalities. Maybe one more scene with them would have been nice. But I was overall fine with Turning Red. And I didn't have to be a little Asian girl to relate to her situation. Again, like I said, Pixar in particular have made their duty, their job to appease boys. Robots weren't for us girls. Cars wasn't for us girls. Bug's Life, Ratatouille was not for us girls. It was in the perspective of two male characters. one male rat and one male white person. I don't care about Colette because she was just an object of his desires. If there's a girl there, 9 times out of 10, she's just there for the main male character. Don't give me that. And if the white girlfriend, I think her name is Miriam or something, if she didn't have the most lines, it sure seemed like it. And we've got to figure out why they do that, because it's common. Something that I'm noticing with this new generation of Disney movies, Encanto did this as well. Turning Red did this, where the main character is talking to us for some reason, breaking the fourth wall. For what, though? Like, for what? Like, does that serve any purpose? I really didn't like that in both movies. It could have been scrapped. It was not necessary. I love the family dynamic, balancing of your own personal life and friendship, whole situation. The worst thing about this movie, to me personally, the worst thing is that she's friends with her bully by the end. I don't like the bully turned friend. Like, it's okay to not get along with someone and not have to deal with them and be forced to be there. And no one's forcing her to be his friend. It seems like they kind of just befriend him and act like nothing happened. But I don't know. I just don't like that. Literally, Tyler does nothing to gain the trust back that he didn't even really have to begin with. It's just he's at best starting at 0, at worst starting at -100. So I don't understand why he's friends with them now. Tyler literally extorts her and then calls it a favor that he's not telling her mom about something that wasn't his business to begin with, to make people think he's cool. So no, I don't think Tyler should have been in the friend group at the end, but he also shouldn't have been the only blackish person that talks. Like, they love to use black people's music, but we're nowhere to be seen. As it stands, I like the friendship dynamic as well. I like the 3 friends as it stands, but we're going to talk about what happens and what tropes keep being perpetuated, and we're not going to stop till they stop. I like the dad. I like that he looked deeper than what the mom was looking at, and he figured out how May felt. That was a nice dad moment. And like I said, with the whole turning ethnic people into animals, how about you stop, huh? How about you freaking stop? How about you freaking gosh darn stop? Your objective, should you choose to accept it, is to stop making ethnic people, dark-skinned people, any ethnicity, change into an animal for the majority of their movie. And with that, I'm done.